Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, football edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today by Keith Brown and AJ Fairchild. Thanks again, guys, for coming on the show today. And Tony, he may be joining us later. He's coming back from California right now. So, guys, we are heading into round number 3 of the playoffs. What started with 16 teams in Northwest Ohio in our local coverage area are now just down to 3. So what are your thoughts going into this week?
It's kind of fun to see, who lasts this far. Start seeing teams chipping away here slowly. It's always unfortunate to see the local teams getting knocked out, but it's inevitable. Like we said before, only 7 teams in all of Ohio can come out of this with a win to end the season. So it's good to see the teams that are still there and keep on chugging.
Yeah, just going off what AJ said. Yeah, you always wish you had more local teams, but we got 3, which is better than none. So, but last week, great week of playoffs, great weather on Friday and Saturday both. So let's hope we have close to the same for this Friday.
Yeah, Keith and I and AJ, we all were at the Archbold Coldwater game, which we'll obviously get into that here in a few. And Keith and myself were also at Toledo Christian and Holgate game over at Liberty Center, and that was a good game as well. Matthew joined us again on the sideline too. But yeah, a lot of great games, a lot of kind of surprises too, I'd say. So we'll kind of get into those game recaps here in just a minute. But let's look at how we did for last week's picks. Keith actually finished first with a 9-0 perfect record, and he jumped myself, and he's now good for second place on the year. Matthew finished second with an 8-1 record and still leads the year with a 169-41 record. Logan, AJ, and Tony all finished 7-2, and Bryce finished 4-4, which we know where Bryce is at with his picks. He's just picking all the local teams, so he's a man of the people, as he will tell you. But Keith, spotlight's on you. What led to your picks and your perfects?
Just went on a limb on a couple of them. I mean, took the MAC and Coldwater. So just figured they're a power conference, and they matched up well against Archbold and had a great second half and pulled away. And for the 8-man, I took Toledo Christian, and they seemed to have a dominating force against Holgate earlier in the season. So I just took TC again. So that was it.
Your intuition was right, and it paid off. So. But let's go ahead. We're going to look at round 3 playoffs game recaps here. And we're going to start off with a couple of the NWO Sports Game of the Week. The first one is an 11-man Coldwater at Archbold, and Coldwater came away with this one 28-14. This game was tied up 14-14 at half. Total offense, Coldwater had 402 yards with 268 passing. Archbold had 327 yards, 265 passing. Looking at the turnover battle, Coldwater had 2 with 1 fumble and 1 interception, and Archbold had 2 with 2 interceptions. So, guys, looking at a couple top players of note. From Coldwater, we have to mention this kid, and I'll insert some highlights. I know Coldwater's not necessarily in our area, but he played absolutely phenomenal. He was a player of the game for sure from our side of the things, and that would be wide receiver AJ Harlemert from Coldwater. He had 6 receptions, 173 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had 1 85-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And guys, I told you if your last name is Harlemert and you're down from Coldwater, you're automatically an athlete. And I believe he had a good brother too. I think Braylon or Braden.
Yeah, I think it's his twin brother.
Yeah. So he was also a great athlete as well. But AJ's been the one where he's done backflips and victory formation, stuff like that, and in full pads, mind you. So that's pretty impressive to see. But yeah, he won the game for Coldwater. Looking at Archbold, some top players, wide receiver Chase Miller, 8 receptions, 98 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Running back Lucas Dominic was held to 18 carries, 50 rushing yards. He did have 7 receptions for 46 receiving yards. Wide receiver Nathan Juarez had 1 receiving touchdown. And then Cade Brenner was 25 of 43, 58%. Archbold threw the ball 43 times, 223 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, but he did have 2 interceptions. So, guys, thoughts on the Coldwater at Archbold game?
Really, you kind of talked about there with AJ Harlemert. He was really mostly the Coldwater offense. I mean, he had 3 of the 4 touchdowns himself. The kickoff return, we talked about special teams a lot. That was a big one. Archbold scores and immediately gives up a touchdown right back to Coldwater, which, anybody that's ever played football, momentum is a huge thing in high school football specifically. And that was, you finally get something going. You're like, yes, we're marching the ball down the field, get it in the end zone, and then, take that off the board because we just gave you another one right back. So, and again, it was Harlemert that kind of ran the show a little bit for Coldwater. They just could not stop him from breaking away long pass routes. Like he was just burning people, and it was kind of shocking.
I think the thing that he really had was that breakaway speed. We saw him run routes. He ran very crisp routes. He broke them off. There was one he ran kind of a crossing route over the middle, and he just bent it just enough, and that breakaway speed from the defensive back was unbelievable. I don't know that I've seen that in some time around this area, but he broke it off, and he actually had, I believe, another reception that kind of went through his hands, so he could have had 3 receiving touchdowns on the night, but very athletic indeed. So, Keith, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, it was a great Friday night. A little windy, but nonetheless, still a great Friday night. It was not to say it was a tale of two halves, but Archbold really, I wouldn't say they dominated the first half, but you could tell Archbold was playing with Coldwater, and I think they probably outgained him by 60 or 70 yards in the first half. I think the key play, not this, really the key play of the game, but going into the half, Archbold, I think, had close to a 1st and goal. I don't know if they had the 10 or 11 yard line.
Yeah, they're right around the 10, 11 yard line.
And they were going in for the go-ahead score, and blindside hit on Cade Brenner. Ball went flying. I don't know if it was a fumble recovery or interception.
I think it was an interception. Yeah, because the ball, when he got hit, it kind of flew up in the air, and a defensive lineman from Coldwater came up with it.
So that stymied the Archbold would-be go-ahead score. They give Coldwater credit. There was like 44 seconds to go in the half. I think they went down to the Archbold 20 in about 3 plays. Yeah. Well, Harlemer, again, I think was the one that had 2 receptions to get him down there. But they had a sack, which I think ended the half, so they went in tied at 14, but the second half was just all Coldwater. Ran the ball more effectively, and just Archbold couldn't sustain any drives. I mean, just 3 plays, punt, then it get the ball back, and 4 or 5 plays, 6 plays, and then they're driving in. So, but Coldwater really not that big as we said. Watching them, I mean, they're just like a machine. They just do everything in sync, and it all just come out in the Coldwater win here.
Yeah, you look at Coldwater's O-line and D-line, those kids, and that goes for a lot of MAC schools. They're not very big for the most part. They're maybe like 6 foot, 6'1", maybe $180, sometimes 200 pounds. They're not really all that big, but man, those kids play hard. And we talked about them flying to the ball. Every single tackle on defense, they had 5, 6, 7 hats on the ball, flying there, full effort. And I think that's what they do really well, is they rally to the ball right away. But at the same time, that battle in the trenches was awesome to watch between Archbold and Coldwater, especially in that first half, because Archbold's offensive line and defensive line, they're definitely one of the better ones that we've seen this year, and they were going at it. And I was taking videos and pictures on the sideline, and I believe I showed the guys. I said, "Check this out! Look at it. It's total carnage on the sideline." Guys from Archbold are just moving guys out of the way, hip tossing them, and it was just awesome to see. And really good game to watch. But yeah, like Keith said, I think he hit it on the money. You look at that one play, Archbold had a chance to put 7 points on the board down at the 10-yard line, and just couldn't convert and get it in. And you look in the second half, it's just like Archbold kind of ran out of gas a little bit and just couldn't get a rhythm going. And like you said, Coldwater's defense really stepped up and kind of shut things down, and which the rest was history. But there's a couple chances you thought in the second half. I don't know if you guys thought, but like Archbold was starting to move the ball down the field, and then there'd be some kind of mistake that would set them back. But nonetheless, it was a good game to be at, and a fairly decent crowd there as well.
Yeah. And we were on the Archbold sideline, and boy, oh boy, talk about an intense coaching staff over there.
Yeah.
Coach Dominic, boy, those coaches he has, they're 110% all in on every single play.
We talked about that.
That was great to see.
The intensity that the coaching staff brought to the kids, it got us hyped on the sideline too, just to see them. They were coaching all the kids up.
That was great.
Very detailed approach, and it really showed a lot of the game. And it was just exciting to see that from a quality coaching staff over there at Archbold.
And I think they had 22 seniors, I believe, that said that they're graduating. So fantastic senior class.
Well, I mean, it's also cool to see how many kids are on both sidelines. I mean, there was just a line of kids walking across that field at the end of the game, shaking hands. They actually had to wrap it kind of around a little bit because it was too long. Just awesome to see that many kids out for football.
Yeah, you figure both programs. I know Archbold's got, I don't know, it was like 68 or almost 70 kids. Not quite 70, but Coldwater, I'm assuming, is similar,
close,
high 60s as well. So basically, you've got almost 140 kids playing football. That's a lot.
That's awesome.
And it was cool, too, to see both teams running multiple squads. Special teams is a totally different group than, with the exception of a few skill players, but most of them were all swapping out. You would see a touchdown be scored, then the PA team would come on. It was almost an entirely new group of kids, and then they would come off, and the kickoff team would go on. So, and that's one of the reasons we've talked about with getting kids involved in the game. Even though some of the younger guys, sophomores, some of the juniors that haven't been playing as much, they get in on special teams. It's enough to keep them, going and getting into it. And that way, their senior year, they're right there ready to play. Yep.
All right, we're going to go ahead. We'll move on to the next game, and this was also our co-NWO Sports Game of the Week, and this was the Ohio 8-Man Football State Championship, and that was Holgate facing off against Toledo Christian. Toledo Christian would win this one 44-6. At the half, Toledo Christian led 38-0. Looking at total offense, Toledo Christian had 297 yards, 170 rushing. Holgate had 105 yards, 90 yards passing. The turnover battle, Toledo Christian had 2 with 1 interception and 1 fumble. Holgate had 4 with 4 interceptions. Looking at some top players of note, Keith and myself, like I said, were hit there. Toledo Christian, this kid absolutely was a rock star Saturday night at Rex Lindgren Stadium. And that'd be wide receiver safety Carter Kester. The kid, he had 5 receptions, 48 receiving yards. He had 2 receiving touchdowns, but on defense, he was just a ball hawk. And the eyes that he had led to 4 interceptions. He had a pick 6 on defense. He was just a menace all over the field. Highlight machine, and he really played his butt off, and it showed. And that led to such a dominating win from Toledo Christian. And then looking from Holgate, one key kid that stood out was tight end linebacker Dylan Becker. He had 5 receptions, 73 receiving yards, and he made plays all over the field on defense. He had a couple of big hits as well, and that's just one physical kid, and he's got a motor like no other on that Holgate team, and he really did well. And that's why Kester won, obviously, the MVP for the whole thing, and then from Holgate, Dylan Becker won their MVP as well. So, Keith, I'll kind of swing it over to you since you were there. So what were your kind of takeaways from the Holgate-Toledo Christian game?
Several thoughts before the game even started. Number one, fantastic job by Liberty Center and Caleb Poland over there.
Excellent.
I mean, they do things the right way. But
and Liberty Center it's a football town. Boy. It's a football culture. We got to talk to Caleb a little bit too, and he was pretty excited to be hosting the event. And sounds like they should do it in the future too.
So, second, fans both sides full. Student sections, amazing for both TC and Holgate. And this is before the game even started. That was our first 8-man game that we've ever seen. We've heard about it, wanted to go watch it. But I guess from our vantage point where we were watching, unless you knew you were watching 8-man, you would really have no idea that it was 8-man football. It was played like a normal game. Your sidelines are in a little bit closer than a regular 11-man game.
It was just weird because, with the sidelines being tighter, and I was taking photos and videos again, and Keith was hanging out next to me, and I'm like, I feel like we're breaking the rules because you're actually standing on the field or part of the field of a regular 11-man field, so you're actually kind of out there a little bit further. But
I was just seeing the tape or whatever they call it keeps getting flipped up and moved. It's a little bizarre, but very action-packed. Carter Kester, boy, a man among boys. I don't even know where to start. He could start for any team in Northwest Ohio.
Yeah.
Good looking
kid.
He's that good.
He's like, what, I think like 6'1", 6'2",
probably.
Maybe.
A solid 190, 200.
Yeah, good build. He's an excellent basketball player as well. So the kid just balled out. And again, like we said, his eyes and his vision, he was all over the field, and he made breaks on the ball. And it shows with 4 interceptions. Again, there's only one other kid that had 4 interceptions this year that we know of, and that was Tanner Rubenstein from Napoleon. So
he actually could have had 5, but he dropped one on 4th down on purpose.
Yeah.
From my vantage point from 8-man football, if you're a school that's thinking about it, you don't have football, and you may venture into 8-man football. It was exciting. It was great game to watch. As we talked to who were we talking? Kevin I said, like, at first when it was kind of like a Madden shootout, and then he says, the last couple of years they've kind of figured it out a little bit better on offense and defense, so it's reeled back a little bit, so you don't see your 70 to 62 games quite like you did at one time. But very, very exciting. And Toledo Christian, was that Jake Mahalik the running back, I think.
Yes, I believe.
He was a beast too.
Yeah, he tore it up.
Like he was just a little bowling ball going through there. He was
a couple nice runs he had of probably 20, 30, 40 yards, even some, and he just kind of broke through that line, showed off a little bit of that speed, and read his blocks perfectly. So another great player as well.
But overall, I mean, if you're thinking about doing the 8-man thing, it was A++ from at least my vantage point, and I think probably most people that were there. Second half got a little bit out of hand.
Yeah.
Fans were a little chippy on the Holgate side, but overall, a very positive review for me.
And realistically, I know the Holgate faithful were not happy, but that officiating crew actually did a very good job. We were watching them, and we were non-biased. Obviously, we were rooting for Holgate being a team that we covered, but we just kind of stood back and watched, and they actually, the officiating crew did a very nice job, very thorough, on point. So, I mean, I don't really think that was an issue, but if you're a Holgate fan, it was otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great point by you, Logan. Officiating crew, you could see them communicate throughout, like even from a distance, just how they communicate with each other. No meetings really to speak of, and they were pretty decisive and amongst everything they decided. So. Yep.
Well, touching on that point too, going back to the Archbold game, we saw several measurements. We saw a very thorough game from the officials. And, as we get closer to the state playoffs here, we're seeing better and better competition, better games, but also better officiating crews because they are actually rated and graded and stuff like that during these games. So the better the crews move to the next level. Yep. So, it's going to just get better in all aspects of football.
Yeah, we were standing by actually the individual that was doing some of that down there a lot of the time. So,
AJ, do you got any final thoughts on the Holgate Toledo Christian game?
Nope.
All right. Well, we'll keep things moving. We're looking at the next game, Black River at Columbus Grove. Columbus Grove came away with this one with a win, 34-6. Columbus Grove led at halftime, 19-6. Looking at total offense, Columbus Grove had 361 total yards with 309 rushing. Black River had 177 yards with 113 passing. The turnover battle, Columbus Grove was crisp with 0. Black River had 4 with 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Some top players a note from Columbus Grove. Quarterback Landon Best was 6 of 10, 60%. 52 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 12 carries for 96 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Running back Trent Barraza, 22 carries, 126 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. 2 receptions, 16 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Again, this kid's just a sophomore as well, which is crazy to think. But guys, what were your thoughts on the Black River at Columbus Grove game?
Good to see Columbus Grove coming away with this one, staying alive here, coming into the playoffs. Not a whole lot more to say about it. I mean, good performance.
Yeah, Columbus Grove definitely clicking at the right time. I think they used that Bluffton game as a little springboard into the playoffs, right? Rushing game definitely had been clicking all year, and 361 yards, or 309 here of their 361. So.
And I know a lot of times we talk about Columbus Grove's offense with that rushing attack, but I think a lot of credit has to go to that defense. You look at this game, total yards, they just gave up only 177 yards. That's pretty impressive, and only giving up 6 points. And you look over the last few weeks, Columbus Grove has really been one of the best defenses throughout the playoffs and even the last part of the season. And actually, obviously, we're having our special guest on later, which we'll introduce. But with Columbus Grove, I think they've got 3 or 4 shutouts on the year. You take away the first 3 games when they went 1 and 2. They've been lights out on the defensive side of the ball, and they've done a really nice job. And I think they're going to really have to rely on that here come down the home stretch, especially next week, or this week, actually, playing against a tough physical carry team.
Very, very tough.
But nonetheless, another good performance by Columbus Grove, and they're moving on in the playoffs. Next game we're looking at Huron at Liberty Center. Liberty Center came away with this one 41-7. At halftime, Liberty led 28-0. Looking at total offense, Liberty Center had 407 yards, 348 rushing. Huron had 74 yards, 49 passing. We're talking about defenses. Holy cow, 74 yards of total offense. It's impressive. Liberty Center as a team, they've averaged 10.2 yards a carry rushing this game. Unbelievable. Turnover battle, Liberty Center had 1 with a fumble. Huron had 1 with an interception. Some top players from Liberty Center, running back Colton Cruz, 15 carries, 195 rushing yards, good for 13 yards a carry. Very impressive. 4 rushing touchdowns added to that. Running back and brother, Trenton Cruz, 10 carries, 86 rushing yards, 8.6 yards a carry, and 1 rushing touchdown. Defensive lineman Seth Navarre had a nice game with 4 tackles and 2 sacks, and defensive back Thomas Mueller had 1 interception. So, guys, another excellent Liberty performance. What were your thoughts here?
Liberty Center train just keeps on chugging down the tracks. I mean,
talk about defense here. I've only given up 74 yards.
Yes.
Wow.
It's just, lack of a better term, it's just like they just win in a boring fashion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think I brought the comment up earlier in the year. I feel like really we haven't even covered Liberty Center. We have, obviously, but we haven't talked about them much because every game they play is a blowout.
Right.
There's not much to talk about in blowouts except a couple top players from Liberty Center, and that's about it because the rest is history. So
no, it's everybody says Liberty Center, all they do is run. Well, that's true because you can't stop them. I mean, why throw the ball 45 times a game if you're successful running it? If you're going to, pick up 300, 400 yards a game running, why deviate from that?
I feel like they need to take Forest Run. They need to take Run Liberty Run because they're going to run you out of the stadium. They're going to run you out of the country, and they're going to run you all the way down to state championship is what they're going to do. So, again, and a lot of people, they may say Liberty Center, and there's some hot takes coming up later. Jeez, believe me.
I can't wait.
about Liberty's offense and stuff, but complaining, their offense really isn't that good, this and that. And I'm thinking, not that good. If you can go and run the ball for 348 rushing yards, 407 total yards in a game.
Probably average 400 yards a game in total offense.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right,
so, I mean, it's working for them. It's going well. And if a team can't figure out how to stop the run, why would you stop doing it?
Well, but the thing is, too, they do have threats out there.
They do.
Passing-wise,
they have good athletes.
They haven't had to use yet. You see a few games here and there where they start throwing the ball a little bit. Landon Amstutz is averaging, about 11, 12 yards a throw, 15 yards a throw, something around there. Per completion. That's enough to get you that first down when you need it. If you're struggling, you need a couple extra yards. Just, quick out route or something like that can get you there. But why utilize it if you haven't had to yet? Because you're saving that one in your back pocket for when games get tight.
Oh, that's a very good point because honestly, you get into these deep playoff games. Landon Amstutz, he's a quality quarterback and he can throw the ball, and he's shown it throughout the year. But again, what do teams have to scout off of Liberty Center in the passing game in regards to that? Because Liberty hasn't shown anything all year. We maybe seen a couple games where they might have had, maybe 100+ passing yards and maybe have thrown the ball maybe 15 times. But other than that, there's not much for teams to scout regarding that. So
you have that ace in your pocket just ready to whip it out.
Exactly. AJ hit it right on the money.
You got the triplet Cruz brothers, and we don't really ever hear about Landon out there. He's out there on the slot and hasn't really been utilized yet this year. And I'm waiting for his day to, Matthews breakout player of the week. I'm waiting for him to have a breakout game here soon.
Yeah, and even though Landon, he's an all Ohio type defensive back too, so he's taking care of things on the defensive side. But again, another great athlete that could be utilized on the offensive side of the ball, and the list goes on and on with all the guys that they can get the ball. If they get the ball to those guys out in space, they're just as good as anyone else out there. So, definitely scary to see. And, Liberty just keeps on rolling. Let's look at the next game here. Looking at Arlington at Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry came away with this one 40-14 winners. This game was actually close at halftime. Arlington was leading 14-12, so the Patriots were in a little bit of trouble. Patrick Henry would go on to outscore Arlington 28-0 in the third quarter to blow the game wide open. Total yards, Patrick Henry had 453 with 349 rushing. Arlington had 109 yards with 60 passing. Turnover battle, Patrick Henry had 2 with 1 interception, 1 fumble. Arlington had 1 fumble. Top players from Patrick Henry, running back Houston Miranda, 16 carries, 179 rushing yards, 11.2 yards a carry with 1 rushing touchdown. Quarterback Lincoln Krieger was 7 of 15, 47%. 104 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He did have 1 interception, but on the ground, he had 15 carries, 117 rushing yards, 7.8 yards a carry with 3 rushing touchdowns. And wide receiver Landon Johnson, he got on the board with 1 receiving touchdown with also 4 receptions for 61 receiving yards. So, guys, thoughts on the Arlington at Patrick Henry game?
Go ahead.
I would love to see the breakdown of yards per quarter to see where this is at, because Arlington had to have had that 109 or 80 of the 109 all in the first half. If they scored 14 there, that you've got to have say 40, 50, 60 yards a drive to get in the end zone. and then the second half come out and do absolutely nothing is what it looks like, as opposed to Patrick Henry. They had to have been controlling the football. The time of possession had to have been very lopsided in that second half, because 453 yards, that's astounding for a team.
Yeah, very much so. Now, what I was going to start out with was, usually we talk about the Patrick Henry offense, but like AJ said, Patrick Henry defense, hats off to them in this game, especially with the Arlington offense that dominated Antwerp the week before. I mean, they're just tough to stop. That 2-3 back offense, you never know which way they're going, who's getting the ball. It's like we compared it to kind of almost like watching Navy play. It's difficult to stop. But obviously, Coach I last week worked on the defensive side of the ball pretty hard. And great job by the Patriots defense and offense. As we said last week, Lincoln Krager gets more and more comfortable each week, and a dual threat quarterback moving on to the next round.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see, because Patrick Henry starting the year, they have that pocket passer presence from Nash Meyer, who he could scramble and pick up, first down when needed. But now you're seeing, again, that dual threat type of offense where teams are going to have to respect that out of him. So a little bit different, and maybe obviously I think it's playing to Patrick Henry's advantage, because again, go back to scouting. The first half of the year, if that's what some of the film that they ended up trading, you're not going to see Lincoln Krager A playing quarterback, and B, you're not going to see how they utilize him in running the ball either. So again, he's done a really nice job especially on short notice. Continues to improve each week. Houston Miranda, running back, he's taking care of business again, and he's been, honestly, I want to say throughout the whole season, heart and soul of that offense.
Probably right.
Patrick Henry's gotten back to running the ball with a tight end on the ball at times too. So they're getting a little bit more into that smash mouth rather than last year. They kind of spread things out a little bit more. But like we talked to Coach I before the season started, said he wanted to get back to running with a tight end of the ball, a little bit more physical brand of football, and they're doing just that. So. Yep.
And Landon Johnson hasn't really dominated this year like he did last year, but he's still like that little secret weapon you have.
He is.
That, he's not really stand out this year for numbers, but you still have to pay attention to him.
Yeah, still, I believe, what was he last year? He was an All-Ohio receiver. I don't remember first or second team as a junior. Either. So the kid is definitely a threat, and you have to honor him and his speed, because he can burn you on some deep ones. So let's move on to the next one, looking at Defiance at Toledo Central Catholic, and Toledo Central Catholic won 41-26. Toledo Central Catholic was up just 28-20 at halftime. The Bulldogs were hanging in there, but Toledo Central Catholic would outscore Defiance 13-6 in the second half. Looking at total yards, Defiance had 286 with 154 passing. Toledo Central Catholic had 425 yards, 253 rushing. Turnover battle, Defiance had 0 turnovers. Toledo Central Catholic had 2 fumbles. Penalties, Defiance had 3 for 20 yards. Toledo Central Catholic had 13 for 135 yards. So a lot of penalties from Toledo Central Catholic. Some top players from Defiance, quarterback Brez Ziffel was 12 of 24, good for 50%. 117 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had 5 carries for 30 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Running back Brogan Castillo, 18 carries, 89 rushing yards. He had 3 receptions for 27 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And tight end Garrett Rodenberger had 2 receptions, 36 receiving yards with 1 receiving touchdown. He also had 1 pass for 37 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown. So getting a little tricky with things there for the Bulldogs. But guys, I think Defiance did a really nice job this game. They hung in with the Division II, mind you, state champions from last year. Now they're in Division III, and Defiance was going toe-to-toe with them, punch for punch in that first half. And actually, Toledo Central Catholic, the first 2 scores they had were actually kickoff returns for touchdowns. So they returned, I think, the opening kickoff. Defiance got the ball. They ran down, marched, had a really good drive, punched and scored. And then Toledo Central Catholic comes back again with another kickoff return for a touchdown. But we knew going into this game, Toledo Central Catholic, a lot of athletes all over the field, a lot of D1, Division I commits, and they have a lot of size. They had an offensive lineman that was a 3-star commit. That was actually, he was going to go to Ohio State, but he's got offers from, a majority of Power 5 conferences. So, guys, what were your thoughts here?
I mean, special teams, huge. If you're giving up 2 kickoff returns to start the game off, that's obviously going to set you behind there without even giving your defense a chance. We've talked about it, again, year and year, or all year long, that special teams, if you're a kicker, a good kicker can put the ball, in touchback territory, stop them from getting a return, because we were talking about who was it? Archbold. They gave up a kickoff return.
Yep.
Liberty Center, Huron, their 7 points came off of kickoff return. And then we got 12 points technically coming off of kickoff returns in Defiance TCC game. So a lot of points scored this week on kickoff returns.
Yes.
And punt returns are right there with it too. We haven't seen a whole lot of them yet, but they're definitely an issue. And the more you can pin somebody very deep, the better off you're going to be, giving up big returns, even if they're not touchdowns, but if they're 30, 40-yard returns, that's going to be hard for your defense to keep that momentum their way.
Yep. No, hats off to Defiance and Coach Cooper. I mean, they went in, obviously, probably really didn't, hate to say it, but they probably knew in the back of their mind that it would take a perfect game to win. And they played almost a perfect first half, well, honestly. Yeah. And your final score is 41-26. And, Coach Cooper, I mean, I assume he's disappointed they lost, but this is one of those wins you just, a couple days later, you kind of, you're just sitting back and you think back and you're probably just take a smile and you'd be like, we played really well and represented our team and our senior class. I think they had 12, 13 seniors. Castillo, Rodenberger, those guys playing in their final game. Obviously, couldn't ask for, you obviously want to win, but as AJ said, only 7 teams win their last game. So, but Defiance, representing the Bulldogs in the town of Defiance, played a heck of a game against one of the, probably the best team that Toledo Central Catholics faced all year.
Yeah, I'm sure Toledo Central Catholic went into that locker room at halftime sweating, worried. How often do they get run up a scoreboard like that?
Yep.
Yeah, and you look throughout the year, I believe Toledo Central Catholic, some of the teams that they play, and the score of this one is actually closer than a lot of these powerhouses in the state of Ohio, even Michigan, because now they're in that Catholic League Conference. But if you're Travis Cooper and the Defiance Bulldogs, successful season. I mean, you look at everything that they've done. They put themselves in contention for a WBL championship this year, another quality season with a winning record, another playoff win this year. I think it's just another step in the process of building a quality program over there at Defiance. The kids we've talked about, and Tony brought it up in the past, of helping out in the community, things like that. They're doing things right on and off the field, and it really shows. And I think Defiance continues to move in the right direction. Obviously, that was the buy or sell point last week, and I really do, because they do all the little things right, and it adds up in the long run. So
it's one of those seasons that the seniors actually had such a great time and whatnot, and they had a successful year that all the kids from Little League and coming up through junior high, they're like, well, I'm going to play for the Bulldogs. I'm going to play for Coach Cooper. So hopefully they can build off this season.
All right. Well, that concludes our game recaps from last week. We're going to go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign, and promotional items to customers of Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. Optimal Performance Fitness is your go-to gym in Northwest Ohio, providing group fitness classes, personal training, and sports performance sessions for area athletes. Located in Napoleon, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-438-7265. BSN Sports is your go-to business for purchasing uniforms, equipment, spiritware, and anything else your athletic program needs, giving you more time to impact lives on the field. With over 1,200 sales professionals who live, work, and serve in your community, we are always just a short drive or phone call away. Be sure to give your local sales rep and Jim Garris a call for any of your athletic supply needs. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Batt & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube, and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are on to the coaches segment of the podcast, and we have head coach of the Columbus Grove Bulldogs and Andy Schaefer on, so thanks for coming on, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys following us and having me on.
All right. Well, first, I want to congratulate you first for your Northwest Conference title championship and your success this postseason so far. You guys have really done an excellent job to this point.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Certainly give the credit to the coaches and the kids and the community, and we got a good support system there at Grove, and things are going well. So thank you.
Yeah, so going into Coach, your team has come a long way this season. You initially started off with a 1-2 record, but since you've rattled off a 9-game winning streak. What has this season been like for you and your team so far?
Yeah, honestly, we went through the exact same thing last year. We started out 1-2 as well, and we started getting better each week. We were I think we were 2-3 or whatever, same record. Anyways,
sure,
we've been getting better each week, and that's the thing. We really don't try to look ahead long term. We just treat one week at a time and just get better and really focus on little things. We've I guess we always schedule a pretty good, non-conference schedule to start our season, so we know that it's going to be rough. But we feel by doing that, obviously, it's going to make us better long term, and certainly that's happened the last couple of years. So I guess it's working out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something, when anyone brings up Columbus Grove as a football team, the first thing that comes to my mind is you guys are tough, you're a winning program, and you guys are resilient. You look at the last 5 years or so, I got some different records here. 2022, you go 12-3 record, state semifinal berth. 2021, an 11-1 record. 2020, 10-1, another state semifinal berth. And then a 19, 7-3 record, 18, 8-4 record. So, that ends up being 48-12 record over the last 5 years and 80% win percentage, which is absolutely incredible. What is it that makes Columbus Grove football so successful?
Well, our kids, they take it really serious. I've said this in an interview before. When you lose a game in Grove, it's yes, it's a loss for you, and yes, it's a loss for the program, but honestly, you kind of feel bad for the entire community. Like, everybody takes it serious. So, I guess that's a little bit motivation to make sure that you win. And obviously it's going to happen occasionally, but, do you learn something from it? And, so far the last few years, we've really, not very often have we ever lost back-to-back games. We get better and we learn from it. And that's what's really kind of been the success the last few years.
Yeah, I would say so. You guys definitely are an incredible program, and you continue to win games, and it shows. 80% win percentage. There's not many teams in the area that can do that. So, but other than that, I'm going to swing it over a couple guys in the studio here with Keith and AJ. I'm going to let them ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Coach, starting off here, kind of looking at the defense side of things. You guys right now, it looks like you're only giving up about 13 points a game, which is pretty impressive. You mind kind of talking about what you guys are doing over there that's working so well?
Yeah. Andy Cole's our defensive coordinator, has done a great job, and the rest of our defensive staff. And, we really are not that fancy of a defense. So there's no secret. We run a 4-3 cover 2. And we're pretty true to it. A lot of teams will try to mix in different coverages, and certainly we will, based on different sets. It'll force us into a different look. But for the most part, we have a very base defense, and I think that what also kind of makes us unique is we don't really read the backfield. We're really looking at the offensive line, and there's not a lot of teams out there that do a lot of false keys. So we really feel like if you read your keys on the offensive line, they're not going to lie, and they're going to tell you what's going on. So, our defensive staff does a great job of teaching that, and forcing kids to understand what's kind of hitting you, what's going to hit you first, and reacting to that. And I think that's why we've done so well. Honestly, the other thing that we do is, every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, we spend probably 10 to 15 minutes doing tackling circuit and turnover circuits. That's just part of our defensive practice every single day. And, a lot of teams are scared to practice tackling, but, we have all kinds of different pads and different equipment to, I guess, lessen the blow and that kind of stuff, because we're barely tackling body on body. But just the way that, Coach Coles and our defensive staff really orchestrates our defensive practice, it really gets us, to perform on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. The doing tackling drills, that's something, like you said, is kind of dying off a little bit because I think people are scared to get some of their players hurt. But, some of that is also conditioning as far as getting your body used to taking a hit once in a while. So that's awesome to see you guys continuing that tradition.
Yeah, we're in week 13 in the playoffs, and it's just like tonight. We're doing tackling circuit. We have landing mats, we have dummies that we tackle and that kind of stuff. But tackling wheels, we got all the different, I guess, toys. But we just stress that's so important in today's game to be able to tackle. So we found a way to do it in today's game because obviously you can't practice tackling all the time, but body on body. But we figured out a way to do it, and I think that's definitely showed off.
Hi, Coach. This is Keith. You had a senior class that was 24-1 at home at Clymer Stadium. Can you talk a little bit about that senior class?
Yeah, honestly, going into this season, we really talked about. Truthfully, I didn't think we really had any leaders. We just had a lot of guys that were great guys, but we didn't just have those guys that are going to step up and lead us. And I've been really, really, I guess, pleasantly surprised the way that, especially after a couple of losses, how it's kind of forced some guys to step up. And, that being said, not only did they step up, but they brought kind of other guys with them. And so this senior class had, big shoes to fill, obviously, from the class that we lost the previous year. And, they just didn't have to have that leadership role because everybody else in front of them kind of did it. But, after you lose a couple games, it's like it's a wake-up call that, hey, this is my job, this is my role, I got to step up and do this. And, I've been really pleasantly surprised with the way that our seniors have led us. And, the other thing about this senior class is we have some really, really good juniors and sophomores and even a freshman. And, they don't take that senior leadership as, I'm a senior, you guys got to do what I tell you to do, but it's more of that servant leadership of taking themselves off the pedestal and leading beside guys. And it's been really cool to see that happen on the culture of our team.
One more thing I wanted to ask you here, Coach, was you guys have been doing a really good job running the ball with Trenton Barraza. You just want to kind of talk a little bit about what he's been able to do and, as far as the offensive line has been able to help you guys establish the running game? Yeah,
Trenton's he's a special kid. And, we knew that from an early age coming into the program. He just had vision like no other, honestly, that I've coached. And I've had the opportunity to coach some really, really good running backs. And, he's got the speed, he's got the vision, and he's also a pretty tough kid. So, and a smart kid. So, it's kind of the whole package with him. But, the thing that I really like about Trenton is that any interview he's ever done, he instantly goes to the offensive line and gives them credit. And certainly we had, 3 guys back, starting on our offensive line from the previous year. And we had a feeling that those guys were going to be really good, but just a mix of those two, the offensive line and Trenton has been very special. Not to mention our freshman tight end, Brady Basinger, has stepped in, and we honestly didn't think that we were going to have a tight end this year. So it's been really cool to see him kind of join in with the rest of the group, and that's what I'm like. I was saying before, our seniors and our juniors inside, they're a team. They don't really look at Brady as a freshman; they look at him as a teammate. And it's really, we've got a really good culture right now, and I think that's why we've had the success that we've had here recently.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you.
Hey, Coach Keith again. Going to go back a couple weeks to Week 10 versus Bluffton. I heard a couple of your post-game interviews. My goodness gracious. Kind of want to strap on the helmet and pads and play for you, too. You seemed pretty intense, and probably will agree that most of us here, unfortunately, other than our good friend Michael Hearn.
Hey, I had Logan. I had you picked too, Coach.
We probably picked Bluffton for some dumb reason, but were you and the team extra laser focused during that week and on Friday night?
We were. I can't even tell you the mood. It's just it seemed like every day was just even more motivation, and even some stuff that went into the pregame. I'll be honest with you, it was just even more and more and more. And that's a game that honestly, it's been a rivalry game for years. I was a long time ago. I was a Claire Austin graduate, and Bluffton was our rivalry back then. And then I moved to Grove, and it's the in-conference rivalry instead of the out-of-conference rivalry. So it was big in my life. So it's always been a rivalry. A few years ago they kind of did something in our field, and it kind of made us mad, obviously, and. Because of that, it's just grown and grown and grown, and then all of a sudden here we're playing for a league title, and credit to them, they certainly have improved from the previous year, but it was like everybody was forgetting who we were.
Right, yeah,
and that's where it was like we've had tradition, we've been pretty successful too, but it seemed like everybody wrote us off, and it was kind of crazy. So yeah, we were motivated, and that was fun. That was a great atmosphere. And honestly, that was a first for me. We won some league titles, but to have a Week 10 game like that where it meant something, I guess, against another team. A lot of times you'll win Week 10 and then you get to sit around and, get on the internet or, radio, try to find out who won to see if you won outright or, whatnot. But listen, you knew right at the end, because the other team was on your field. So that was fun.
Yeah, I love it, Coach. Love the fire and passion, and that's good to see. Last thing we have for you here, Cary is up next on the schedule. Everyone knows Cary's a physical team. They're state champions just a couple years ago. What is this matchup looking like for you guys, and what will it take for your guys to end up with a win at the end of the day?
I think it's awesome that we're playing Cary. I love playing teams like this because it's a whole community that surrounds their team, and it's very, very similar to Columbus Grove, and the success, and they've got a lot of guys out on their team. I think they have 61 on their roster. We have 52. So in our schools, football's not dying like some schools are, and so it's neat to see that excitement, and it's certainly going to bring a big crowd, but it was like. We were watching them on film, and our kids are like, yeah, hey, they're physical, and yeah, we are too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so exactly.
It's like, yeah, that's going to be fun. Hey, our kids are like, that's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to hit some people, that kind of stuff. So, that's what's neat to see is games like that, and kind of a little bit of a, I guess, throwback game. Certainly, when you look at their style of the old Maryland eye, and really kind of coming right at you, and it's not 3 downs to get a first down; it's 4 downs. Because it's just going to keep running, and then certainly we talked about our offensive line is obviously got their hands full, but if you can get Trenton Brazek crease, he's averaging 7.1 yards per carry on his career, which is insane,
unbelievable.
So it's going to be a fun game. Just great. We don't have to worry about is there going to be a crowd there because we know it's going to be big, and I know we got to travel a little bit farther than what we'd like to go to Fostoria, but I think it's kind of cool that it's there because it's not one of those blue collar towns, and 2 blue collar schools, kind of going at it old school, and I think the atmosphere is actually going to be right where it needs to be, so it'll be good.
All right, Coach. Well, we just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy week to join us. But we want to wish you good luck this Friday and the rest of playoffs. We'll be rooting you on, and hopefully you guys come out with a win.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, anytime I'll be on your show. Yeah, thank you for reaching out. Appreciate it.
Yep. Good luck, Coach.
Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yep.
All right, we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors.
Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio. Give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio. Call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Drop Zone Pizzeria is the #1 voted pizza restaurant in the region. Check them out for pizza, wings, subs, and more. Located in Ayersville and Stryker, or ask them about their traveling food trailer.
We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are onto the Hot Takes presented by BSN Sports. But first, we have the sub-segment of the Hot Takes, and that is our buying or selling segment, which we started last week. So, again, All these are submitted by fans. We enjoy having you guys send them in. Usually on Sunday nights, I ask for what people's thoughts are on some of these, and we enter them in here. But for the buying or selling segment, again, we have these statements. It's meant to be a little bit quicker than the hot takes, but we will either buy with our fancy new signs, thanks to Keith, or we will sell if we disagree with the statement, and we'll kind of give our 2 cents as to why. So with Tony not being here, AJ will kick things off first.
Oh, boy.
And then I guess we'll loop it right back around to me. So the first buying or selling take, LC's offense is low-key not good. Their run is the only thing they can rely on. Buying or selling, AJ?
Oh, selling. I think that's a terrible point. We've talked about that before a couple of times. I think LC's offense, you can't argue with it. 40 points a game. You can't say that their offense is low-key not good when they're outscoring everybody they play by double the points.
Keith, buying or selling?
Just like AJ, that's a horrible take. That's sell. If it's so easy to stop, put 11 guys in the box and stop it. Oh wait, you can't stop it. So I mean,
yeah, same thing for me. This is an easy one. I'm selling. I would hold up about 10 of these signs if I could, because like I said earlier, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And they are just running all over everyone. Again, I like AJ's point that he made earlier. A lot of teams don't have anything to scout off for Liberty Center if they do end up passing it, which they haven't. No one's forced them to, but they continue to keep on rolling. Yeah, that's an easy sell. I disagree with that statement. Next one. Bryan makes the playoffs next year, even with losing their quarterback 1 and running back 1. AJ, are you buying or selling? That would be losing quarterback Jace Kepler and running back Sam Harrell, 2 first-team all-conference players as well.
I don't know what they really have coming up behind them, but anytime you lose your number 1 quarterback and number 1 running back, it's going to be hard to find another duo that clicks. So I'm going to go ahead and say sell, especially being in the NWAL. They're going to have a tough time getting enough wins to make the playoffs there. So I'm going to say sell.
I'm going off that as well. Sell that one. Let Bryan finish this year 5-5 with those 2.
I'm trying to think. In the regular season, yes. In the regular season, they finished 5-5. They were the 13 seed in the playoffs.
You finished 500. You couldn't stop anybody on defense, and you're losing your 2 best weapons on offense. So that's a sell.
For myself, I'm on board with the other 2. I am selling again. Those 2 are pretty special players. That's going to be hard to replace on the offensive side of the ball, which we know is Bryan's bread and butter. But I think, too, continuing for Bryan, if they're going to improve, they got to step up on the defensive side of the ball as well. But we'll see what they can do next year. And, who knows? They could prove us wrong.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Hopefully they do.
All right, next statement here. Lincoln Krieger is playing like Johnny Manziel right now. And obviously we talked about Lincoln earlier, and, he's running, he's throwing the ball, he's doing a little bit of it all. So, AJ, are you buying or selling?
Yeah, I'm going to buy on that one. He's playing very well considering the circumstances, coming in after Nash Meyer and playing very, very well considering it was very short notice.
Johnny Manziel on the field. Hopefully, playing very well, getting more comfortable as each practice and each game goes by.
Well, I don't know. Do I want to be the same as you guys and buy? I feel like everyone's doing it. I'm going to sell, because I don't know. Obviously, Johnny Manziel is a unique player, but I'm trying to think of another comparison for Lincoln. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to say, I don't even really know.
Almost maybe like a Josh Allen, kind of like running the ball more.
Could be, but I'm sure Lincoln's a little quicker. I've seen him play on the basketball court.
But just the diversity as far as what he is capable of.
Right. No, I agree with him being diverse, but I don't know if Johnny Manziel is necessarily someone you want to be compared to. I mean, college days he's pretty good, but we talking Texas A&M?
Yeah,
Johnny Manziel? Are we talking Johnny Football with the Browns?
No, that was a complete disaster. We're not talking that.
I don't know. I just don't know about the comparison.
Try to reset.
That's right. For you Browns fans out there, might not want that one, but no, Lincoln Krieger, he's playing very well right now. I just don't know that Johnny Manziel's the right comparison. So, next, buy or sell. Fairview only loses 1 or 2 games next season. AJ, buying or selling?
What's their their on a conference schedule? Do we know that?
It's usually Wasion. I'm Well, you can.
Because that's really what it's going to depend on.
Yeah,
Because
I can
as far
find
as
it quick.
GMC goes, I would say it's a good bet. I'm going to go ahead and say buy. Depending on what their preseason, their pre-conference play is, they could very easily come out of the season with only 1 or 2 losses. In the playoff or in the conference, we've talked about them being a scary team next year. They could end up coming out of the conference, 7-0. We don't really know where they're going to fall next year, but whatever they're
this year,
out of
the
conference
first
is.
3 was Wasion, Delton, Bryan. So I assume it's.
Which they almost beat Bryan.
Yep.
They always play Wasion. Some of those could always change.
Those always seem to come down to a field goal like years ago.
Yeah.
But
So very, very possible. I'm going to go with buy.
Keith, are you buying or selling? Fairview only loses 1 or 2 games next season.
1 or 2 games, I'm going to sell that. Fairview, we've talked about them all year long, basically. Coach Rakes, welcome back, doing a great job. It's tough to go from 0 wins to 2 wins to all of a sudden you're just going to flip and then we're going to win 8 games, 8-2. Hopefully they do, but I'm going to sell that. I don't think that they personally do.
Yeah, for myself, looking at this statement, again, I agree with Keith. I'm going to sell. I think Coach Doug Rakes is doing a phenomenal job there. But to only lose 1 or 2 games, it's hard to do. Not many teams do it, but they've got that athletic freshman and sophomore class. They got a lot of athletes coming up in the 8th grade class as well. I still think they've got a little bit of time. They're going to go through some growing pains, believe me, because to mesh everyone together, to get everyone back on track. Obviously, we know their offense is pretty strong. Their defense is, probably got to work out some things as well. But I'm going to sell that statement. I think give it 2 years, and I would definitely buy that statement.
Yeah, which is funny because I've been kind of the one that's been saying that I think Fairview is still another year out yet. But I would bet for it more than I would bet against it because they're going to be a scary team.
Next one, Defiance wins the WBL next season. AJ, are you buying or are you selling?
I'm going to sell this one.
Why are you selling?
Because losing Brogan Castile is going to be a big dent to your offense. And I know he was missing for a good portion of the season, but while he was missing, definitely sputtered a little bit coming in the second halves of some of these games. So I think losing him and coming in with a new season next year, I think they're going to be fighting for it, but I don't think they're going to come away with it.
Keith, are you buying or selling?
I'm selling that one too. WBL, that's just you just beat each other up.
Does that mean something special, holding it upside down like
Upside down.
That means it's an extra. I was just looking and I saw it was upside down. So
I'm like Charlie Sheen in Major League 2, upside down.
Keith's just trying to send cryptic messages
I
out
am.
there. So
I'm selling. For those of you listening on just on the podcast and can't see, I'm selling that one. WBL, you just beat each other up every Friday night. That's just a tough league to win.
yeah, for myself, I am selling. Western Buckeye League is arguably one of the tougher conferences in the state of Ohio. Again, we saw this year, teams, it's just everything's in a big triangle. This team beats this team beats that team, but that team can't be this team. Yeah. So to make it out of there, it's hard. You have your powerhouses like Wapakoneta, Van Wert, St. Mary's as well. Salina this year. Yep. Salina had a really excellent year, and I believe did Salina end up winning the WBL, or did Wapa? I don't know. Wapakoneta might have.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that I haven't looked at, but nonetheless, I'm going to sell. I think they're right there. I think it's a possibility. I would not totally count it out. Again, we continue to see Defiance improve a little bit more each year. I know they lose some pieces, but they also bring back some quality players. Yep. Quarterback Brez Zipfel comes back. I'm trying to think, I think Anthony Wilder comes back as well. I got some other athletic guys, Brady Borton. The list goes on and on. But Defiance continues to do big things. I just don't know that they can win the WBL next season. I hope so, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Salina and Wapak were 8-1. Defiance and Van Wert were 6-3, along with St. Mary's. So those top 5 were, right there, you just throw them all in a hat.
Yep. So, and it's you can draw out a hat, and any team could win that. So, but for sure, I think it's hard to definitely buy on that one. Yep. So, next one. This is an interesting one. Wrestling correlates to being a better football player. Obviously, people all the time says you need to go out for wrestling if you're playing football. It's going to help you with your hips. It's going to do this and that. But AJ, are you buying or selling?
I'm selling, and for the wrestling people out there, don't get mad at me. I think being an athlete makes you better at football. And if that means you're a 3-season athlete, 3-sport athlete, basketball players, how many times you see a receiver go up for a ball, it's like a jump ball or a rebound. Like, being active in the off season is what makes you a better player for all sports. You take a season off and you sit around and do nothing for that time. That's when you start to lose some of those skills and the strength and that kind of thing. So being a wrestler specifically, I don't think that necessarily is what makes it. I think it's just being an active athlete that makes you a better football player.
Keith, buying or selling wrestling correlates to being a better football player.
So it's one of those you could do can I do 50-50?
Nope, you got to buy or sell. Tony asked that last week, but you got to decide one or the other.
Wrestling correlates to being a better football player. Boy. Been thinking about this since I saw this on here. I'm like with AJ. I'm going to sell that. It probably helps more of your offense, defensive lineman, but if you're a receiver or a quarterback or a running back and you're going out for wrestling, is that really going to help you? You're probably better just as well playing basketball or something else. But I'm sure wrestling for the guys in the trenches probably benefits you a little but better football player, you could probably make yourself a better football player just by training on the off season.
Right.
For myself, I am selling this one. Again, I've seen and I've played with a lot of guys that wrestled and played football. There's guys that wrestle and still don't know how to drop their hips in football and run your hips into a block. So I agree. Definitely sports-specific training, obviously doing the drills over and over, getting in the weight room, that's going to help you too. But I'm a big advocate. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wrestling. I'm a big advocate for kids playing multiple sports. I think it gives them a break, kind of rest those different muscle groups out throughout the season. You look at a lot of overuse injuries too. If kids tend to, what they call is, they specify on one particular sport. Yep. But no, I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of wrestling. I just don't think that it necessarily correlates to being a better football player. I just think everyone and their brother always says, if you're a football player, you got to wrestle, you got to do this and that. Yeah, I think there's some things you can take out of it. Same thing if you played basketball, for offensive line or defensive line, get lighter on your feet. You learn how to change of direction, jumping, things like that too. So, I'm going to have to definitely sell
which
them.
We kind of talked a bit off camera, like the MAC, most of those schools don't even have wrestling programs.
Exactly. And they win state championships all the time. But I tell you one thing they do is they train well with their strength and conditioning programs in the off season and throughout the season as well. We've talked about that numerous times with Marion Local in the off season. It's not unheard of for them to have 80 kids in the weight room at 6 in the morning before school. Yep. And that's among all different sports, working out, training. Yep. I believe they've got a strength and conditioning coach that, directs them and puts them on a good program. And it really pays dividends. And you're starting to see that more throughout the state. And I'd like to see that more schools get it if they could have some kind of guidance as far as, properly utilizing like periodization techniques, building structured programs to build muscle, because if you can do that, that's where you make your money and can give you an edge come regular season.
As opposed to just throwing somebody in there, hey, do 25 reps of this, hey, do 20 reps of this. Well, why am I doing this? What does this do for me?
Exactly. So, and that's one thing you always hate to hear is, you ask a coach or someone, why am I doing this? And they say, I'll just do it because.
Right.
You like to have someone who's knowledgeable on it and they can back it up and support why. But if you as a coach can answer the why behind it, then you're doing a good job. If you can't, then you have to you should probably take a deep look at yourself and ask yourself why you're doing that if you can't even answer the question. So, but no, that's a good one. Next one here. 8-man is not real football. AJ, buying or selling?
I'm going to sell this one too. As far as the game of football goes, no, it's not, the true 11-man. You don't have the trenches quite as much, but you are still playing football. You're still running routes. You're still matching up player versus player. You're still doing the same skills. You just may not be necessarily running the ball through the, A gap up the middle like, LC is, but I still think it's real football.
Keith, buying or selling 8-man is not real football. We got our chance to go see some 8-man football on Saturday.
I would probably say going into Friday night is kind of on the fence because they really didn't know what to expect. But after watching it live in person, like literally from, us to the wall away, definitely, I always put it upside down, definitely selling. Like I said earlier, for those of you who didn't watch or listen, unless you told us that we were watching 8-man from where our vantage point was, you would have no idea if we're watching 8-man or 11-man. It looked like regular football. Everything's played the same, basically. Only really differences I notice is if you're on defense and you're a defensive back, you're pretty much on an island. You're basically one-on-one with your receiver because you don't have the extra DBs back there.
A lot of man-to-man coverage.
So it's mostly man-to-man. But outside of that, it's just regular football. You're just playing with 8 guys instead of 11.
Myself, I am selling as well. Again, I like 8-man football. It gives those smaller communities where they cannot feel, they don't have enough numbers to support an 11-man, but it gives those kids, those coaches, the community a chance for the kids to go out to play for their community. They have a sense of cool pride and still play the great game of football that we all know and love. And that's what I love about it. Physicality still there. All the other rules are the same. There's nothing that changes. Rules the same within a sense. I think you have to have how many guys on the line? They say 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. 5, little intricacies, but the field's a little bit smaller, but everything else is exactly the same. There's not any difference.
Even when we were watching during pregame warm-ups, we're like, well, these guys are doing the same warm-ups as, 11-man teams do.
Right.
So, that's for those of you that haven't seen it, I don't think they could actually judge it.
Yeah, and honestly, like Keith was saying, we stood on the sideline, and obviously the vantage point is a little bit different than us. And seriously, if you were blindfolded and took there and you didn't know that the field was shrunk down, it would look exactly the same. Maybe if you're up in the stands, obviously it looks little different because the field's condensed, and you can kind of see how there's not as many guys crowded on the field. But it was fun to watch, and it's exciting.
I can tell you those kids hit the same.
Yeah, they do.
It's 8-man or 11-man.
Yeah.
We saw that in person.
Yeah, Dylan Becker was knocking kids out left and right. And
honestly, I thought that, was that midway through the first quarter, that Carter Kester, he took a direct shot right on his shins by, I think, Becker. He dove into him and took him out.
I actually had that on a highlight film.
Wow.
The whole crowd just kind of went, ooh, because they thought, I looked at Keith, I said, man, I don't know how he didn't blow his knee out.
That was a heck of a hit.
It never feels good to get hit in the shins like that. God. Holy cow. But he knocked him over and got a good roar from the crowd as well. So, but no, we're all on board at 8-man here. They're doing some great things. It's growing as well, too, so we're kind of excited to see that. I believe
a couple new teams,
2 new schools. I think Chalker is on the edge, and then was it St. Joe?
I don't remember the second one.
Yeah.
I remember Chalker because that kind of stands out.
Yeah.
What Matthew said.
But, it continues to grow in the state of Ohio. And in other states, too, it's a lot bigger than what it is here.
Absolutely.
So last buying or selling take. Small press boxes must go. Small press box equals no hosting for playoff games. AJ, buying or selling?
Well, we're biased on this one. I'm buying. Being media coverage, I agree. It's you guys. All schools kind of need to start migrating to upgrading their press box facilities, because in today's day and age, obviously, streaming coverage and media coverage is becoming more and more diverse and vast. You're starting to get. The Tenora game when they in week 1 playoffs, there was, I don't even know how many different media coverages there. Multiple newspapers, us covering it. They had their own coverage. Just
a couple of them had to stand up in the back, and
we're over at Antwerp playing, and there was 8 different coverages just in the away press box alone. Like, you just got to start upgrading press boxes just for the sheer ability of giving the kids the coverage from these media companies.
Yep, on board with that. Definitely buy. As we see almost every week, press boxes, more people want to cover the games. There's just not enough room to do so. And the deeper you go into playoffs, and like this round especially, you see some of these sites. Obviously, there's a couple where we're at that's unable to host because of projects that are going on. But you see that, and you're like, boy, you just eliminated a lot of the media coverage unless they want to sit in the stands, which me and Logan did when we actually went down to Columbus Grove. And boy, that was quite the game. But anybody that's building a bigger press box or thinking about it, yes, please do.
Yeah, again,
or a visitor's press box.
Yeah, that too.
Preferably.
For myself, it's hard not to buy this, like AJ said. Obviously, we're biased because we do cover stuff for media. But, you know, I think it only makes the game that much better. We live in a world and society now where everything is so social media driven, video coverage, everything. Like, I think if you could get more exposure for all these athletes in the area, you know, who knows? Maybe it gives them. We've heard multiple times through different things and feedback that you know, college coaches from some of the content that we've provided maybe got their kid a look at that they may have not gotten before. So for something so simple, you know, spend the money, upgrade your press boxes, make it a little bit bigger, and you can accommodate to more people. Which can lead to better results for, you know, athletes maybe getting offered for scholarships or opportunities that maybe have never rose before because they never had the opportunities.
Or similar to like Archbold, even though they don't have another press box up there, they at least have a place for you that's covered that you can actually do the game in decent elements.
Yeah, and it was pretty simple. AJ went up there and looked, and all it is on top of their press box, they basically just have some chain link fence boxed in, and they got a tarp. Is it a tarp over it?
Yeah, just a heavy tarp.
That's pretty simple, but I mean, you think of that, you can accommodate a couple more groups, whether it be video coverage or radio or whatever. So yeah, that was just a really cool idea that we saw at Archbold, and
almost reminds me of like a dog kennel.
Yeah,
basically,
right.
just something simple.
Right.
You know, spend a couple $100 at TSC or something, buy a dog kennel, throw it up there, and throw a tarp over it.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll move on to the actual hot takes now. And we got some good ones here, so we'll roll through and we'll see what our thoughts are. So the first hot take is the OHSAA should do big school 8-man tourneys during the summer. Who wants to start this one?
Ah, boy, that's just going to be really difficult to do because, number one, a lot of your kids are just out of baseball. If you're talking summer, like out of school, we're talking middle of June, early July, it's hotter than blazes, in case anybody doesn't know, around this area in the summer. So, and number two, yes, they're just getting out of spring sports, track, football, or track, baseball. And as AJ brought up earlier when we talked about this off camera, like they're not really in condition for football yet. So that would be a hard no. I mean, there's just a lot of no's there.
I mean, as far as off-season stuff goes, the kids, when they start their season, they have to go through like 2 weeks of non-contact, no pads. I mean, they start for the first week. They get their pads after a couple of days of, that initial conditioning and stuff like that, because you got to build your body up to taking hits and taking the blows that you take in football. So to just be able to go out and do a tournament during technically the off season, really, or preseason, you're asking for injuries, and nobody's going to want that. Nobody wants to see the kids getting hurt, especially before the season even starts.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why there's a reason for 7-on-7s. A lot of non-contact. You're still working some of your route concepts. Obviously, you can work that quarterback and center exchange to an extent. No one's really, I don't know. I'm sure some teams probably do go under center a little bit for 7-on-7, but I think, again, too, it's just not realistic because, like he said, I mean, you have so many multi-sport athletes. It's during summer. A lot of times that's time for kids just to be kids, especially in high school.
Especially if you're a 3-sport athlete. I mean, you just don't have time. The time school, well, actually, August 1st till June 1st, if you're a 3-sport athlete, you really get no time off other than Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Yeah, I remember, being in high school, I played baseball, basketball, football. Summer was actually the busiest time of year for me because there would be days I feel like you'd go from, I'm trying to think, football workouts in the morning, and then you'd go to a basketball workout, and then in the afternoon you'd have a baseball game. That'd be all in one day in high school, and that's a lot on kids. And sometimes, I mean, you're running around, especially if you're playing 3 sports, because everyone's kind of pulling you in each direction because they want you to come practice for football, or they want to come practice for baseball or basketball, or vice versa, or whatever sport you play. So it's just such a hard time. And two, limiting the contact. Obviously, football is a tough sport, and anytime. I just don't see it really necessary at that time of the year. You get 10 regular season games, and if you're good enough, obviously you make playoffs. But I don't think that's probably the best idea. I feel like you'd see a lot more injuries, things like that.
Well, I mean, there's no reason why we can't do it like a normal fall tournament like we were doing now with 11-man. I mean, everything lines up. I mean,
but they do host 7-on-7 tournaments. So I don't know if you know that. I've seen coverage of that where teams will go and compete. Whether it be down in Columbus or out east. But that's something that I think is a better alternative. Limit the contact, but you're still kind of working those skilled positions out on islands. Wide receivers, defensive backs, stuff like that. So, I agree with you guys. Next hot take. So we talked about this last week, and this was talking about the playoff games all being on Fridays this year. And we kind of expressed our takes, how we kind of liked being both Fridays and Saturdays. But this is an interesting take because this actually came from a coach, and just to hear their perspective of where things are at. So I'm going to read this from you. This is a direct quote from the coach. As a coach, all playoff games being on Friday is great. Playing a Saturday game screws up your whole weekly schedule and completely consumes your whole weekend, gives you less time to spend with family and watch film. Saturday games always had smaller crowds too for a number of reasons. The officiating issue is only an issue for week 11, and there won't be a problem finding neutral sites after this week. Media and the shrinking number of diehard fans that will go to 2 games in a weekend are the only ones that benefit from Saturday games. I think those points are all valid. I just think that we are the diehard fans that do go to 2 games a week, which is why we wanted them to play on Friday and Saturday and give them more coverage. But I totally get where they come from. It's like, it's I don't know. It's hard. I mean, there's pros and cons to both ways. I think, too, if you do play on Fridays and Saturdays, I think the Saturday slate games are at a disadvantage because then you're competing with college football, whereas on Friday, a lot of those kids will probably, if their game's on Saturday, will probably go to a Friday game, but not vice versa because of all that. Or, they actually have a weekend because they don't play on Saturday. So, but yeah, I thought it was interesting to just hear a take from an actual coach in high school in our coverage area and just what it's like to go through playing on both Friday and Saturday. So, and I believe too, the Ohio Football Coaches Association voted on this to get them pushed to Friday. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
No, we kind of talked about this before, and that's a very valid point. Media and then the diehard fans, those are the ones that would like to see Saturday games because we like watching more football, right? That's a big thing, and giving coverage to more players. But it definitely makes sense. The family, and it's another night or day away from family that you would have had, and kids not having the weekends. You always look forward to that in school, having that weekend. So not a whole lot more to add to it that we haven't already spoke on before.
Yeah. I guess the best comparison that I can personally do it is, since I've been away from school for so long, was me and Logan did a baseball game at Defiance High School 2 years ago. It was one of those showcase tournaments. It was Tenor and St. Henry. So we had the Saturday game. I think it was like a 7 o'clock Saturday game. So your weekly routine doing a game compared to that Saturday game was totally bizarre.
I think I was coming home. I was coming back from like a graduation. I think you were coming from somewhere on a Saturday, and I was coming there, and it was just like you had to rush around because during the summer, a lot of people have
5
plans.
o'clock, right?
Yeah,
so, but yeah, it's I can see that where like you guys said, we're I guess being stingy. We want to see 2 games, but everybody's not like us, and. But yeah, I get it from a total coaching standpoint, where you want everything to be the same, and you want all your games on Friday because that's how you're. Other than like LCC, I guess, play some Saturday games, but you want everything as normal as can be, especially this time of the year, heading into the crucial playoff weeks.
Yeah, and as a player too, I mean, I feel like players' mindsets are probably in the same as the coaches in that sense because it's a sense of normalcy. It's not they're in their routine, and again, high school kids, they want to watch college football too.
Right.
And, some of them, actually, like my brother, he went to the Ohio State Penn State game, and if you're playing on Saturday, you wouldn't get that opportunity too. So, that's very valid points, but it's just interesting to hear it from an actual coach. So, let's move on to the next one. We got a couple more hot takes, and we'll wrap things up with those. What's up with the crowd sizes for high school football games? No one is there. Keith, we kind of talked about this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we went to, like we said, we were at Archbold and Coldwater, and kickoff was at 7. We're kind of looking around. Like, Archbold stands were probably 70% full. Like, hey, maybe the band's setting up there. Maybe they'll show up later. No, nobody sat there. Coldwater, as good as Coldwater is, you think that they would have that whole side full, and I don't know that it was 50% full over there.
Maybe
for
50, 60%.
So I just think with all the, as AJ said and Logan earlier, with all the streaming and everything nowadays, I don't even know if that game was live. It was live on the radio, but as far as actually being live on YouTube or online, I don't know that it was live. I think it was on tape delay. So, but yeah, the crowds this year, for whatever reason, it was perfect weather too. It was a little windy, but it was still 55 degrees about 9 o'clock. And
I guess it was almost a little, it was kind of disappointing to see because a matchup of, you have two, what were they, 10-1 programs,
Yes.
two 10-1 programs. Archbold, who only loss came to Liberty Center, and Coldwater, their only loss came to Marion Local. Two powerhouses in football going at it, round 2 of the playoffs, great weather. What more could you ask for? And you don't see the stands just absolutely filled. If I would have guessed, people, the stands would be full, standing room only, standing around the fences. But I feel like you don't really see any games like that anymore. I think a couple of reasons play into that.
Go ahead. Well, number one,
I think one,
we all know.
I think probably one is with ticket sales, obviously being $15 a ticket at the gate. And actually, we had a dad talk to us on the sideline. He said it's tough because he's got three boys.
He had 3 kids.
3 kids. So whatever he paid,
$60 to get in to watch a high school football game for him and his 3 boys. He said that did not include
concessions.
Probably another $40 he was going to spend at concessions. So he says, I got $100 wrapped up in this game here between me and my boys.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's coming from a fan. Like, he didn't have anyone playing.
No,
he just wanted
to go watch.
A dad taking his three little sons to the game to go watch a football game. And he's spending, $100 because between ticket sales and concessions. And 2, I think probably, but like he said, that game wasn't even live broadcast unless it was through NFHS.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people pay for that.
Right.
But unless, more media coverage and people realize, well, we don't have to go to the game because we can catch it on something else. But just kind of disappointing because the days of packed houses, standing room only, and high school football games, I hate to say it, but I think it's gone. Even during the regular season, we saw some full crowds, but it's nothing like it used to be years ago.
No, we had more games. We had more people for some of our regular season games at Sonora than we had for the playoff game, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I know Winford was further away, but Winford barely had anyone there. And Sonora, I want to say Tenora's was maybe like 70% full, if that. But, I can remember games even back, obviously I hate to be stereotypical, back when I played. But that was just you look at between the years of 2012 to 2015.
Right.
I remember playing Wayne Trace, and
the place was packed.
When Wayne Trace was good, they had a couple they had a state final berth. We played them in the playoffs. It was like, Rocky movies. Like, we'd play them once in the regular season. We'd play them again in the playoffs. And that place was packed, and it was rocking. And it was a good time. But, it's crazy. You don't see things like that anymore. I don't know. I mean, I think those two things, but I just don't know if people, the ambition and drive out of fans in the community and support is like what it used to be. I don't know if you've ever guys seen, but the old Alan R. Moore Gymnasium at Tenora, there's some YouTube videos. So Tenora's old basketball gym, and obviously everyone knows that's smaller, but it's like, how many sardines can you fit in a can when you're watching those old clips? And I'm sure other high schools were like that too, because there was not even a place. There wasn't. So not only there's standing room, there was no standing room. There was people kneeling on the baselines with people behind them. Yeah, it was incredible. And that was back, and I think the videos were in the 80s and 90s. But mid-80s. I would love to see that support from the communities and the fans in today's day and age. But it's just a bummer that you're not seeing that anymore. So
it's really disappointing.
I really want to see that kind of stuff in like major rivalry games that I've noticed. Like, that's the Tenora Ayersville game we were at. That one was pretty packed, but that's a big rivalry game. Now, like you said, the playoff game, you would think, more people start showing up to when it matters. There was less people there. And I'm very excited to potentially watch Liberty Center play because they're a big football town. They're always going to be packing the place. I'm excited to see what their fans look like.
That's one thing I wish we could go back and ask. Obviously, probably not very focused on it now, but ask Coach Schaefer about Liberty Center and Columbus Grove comparison-wise. They're almost like identical small football towns that just love high school football.
Yeah, I agree. Those are two quality programs, and but those are probably the few that their fans are true. And like Coach Schaefer said, if Columbus Grove lose a game, it loses a game.
Yeah.
It's not just the players; it's the fans. They feel it. They're with the team, and like you said, the only other probably fan base and community that's like that is Liberty Center. So. Those two communities are diehard football communities, and we've been to Clymer Stadium when Tenor went into town, and that place is rocking, and that's a hard place to win.
That was during COVID, too.
It was during COVID when people weren't supposed to be there, and that place was unbelievable.
Yep.
So, but no, that's an excellent hot take. I like that one a lot. The last one here is the amount of people complaining about travel times to neutral playoff sites is crazy. Come on, who cares if one team is 15 minutes further away?
Oh, so you got to love social media.
Who wants to start this?
As soon as that was released on Sunday, mid-afternoon, that's the first thing I did was click on comments to some of these things, and it was the funniest stuff ever. Like, oh, we got to drive 7 more miles than what they do, or like, come on. The coach would drive the bus 3 hours to play the game if it meant that he had a chance to advance to the next round. He doesn't care where the game is played, I assure you.
Which, I mean, we've seen that, with Defiance. They were
right.
2.5 hours away. They didn't complain about it.
No.
As far as the difference between neutral sites, who cares? As long as they're not in their backyard, playing at their, neighboring school's field. Like, who cares? It's as neutral as it's going to get. You got to... The OHSA, they got to find a field that not only is it somewhere in the middle, but it's got to have enough facilities to house everybody, to have everybody there, parking, media coverage, that kind of stuff's all got to be big enough to support it. So you can't always just pick the middle field and say, yep, that's going to be there.
It could bring out our ruler and to see which one's in the middle. Oh,
yeah. What's the cutoff time? Okay, let's think of this. What's the cutoff time? 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour of where it becomes like a true issue. What would you say? I think 30 minutes to 45 minutes?
Like 30 to 45.
And we're talking difference of one team's travel compared to another. Like one team having, half an hour, 45 minutes longer drive than the other team.
I think it also depends on what the total distance is. If you got a team playing Northwest Ohio, like say Bryan way up in the corner versus somebody clear over like East Cleveland, it's like a 3-hour drive, 4-hour drive. It's a little more forgiving to say half hour, 45 minutes. But if they're only like an hour apart, half an hour is a big difference.
It's like old school 80s. You get out your map of Ohio. you put a pin down at each school. You tie strings around it, and you see where it intersects. Okay, well, it intersects here. Well, there's no football field here. We just can't blow up, and and Monday there's like a blow up football stadium there. It doesn't work that way.
It's like bench warmers. They buy that property, and if you build it, they will come. And he's obviously what I don't even know what he's making a reference to. What I can't even think of the baseball movie, I think, or whatever. I can't think of what it is. But anyways, that'd be nice. I mean, if you just picked a point, then you could just build a brand new stadium, but it doesn't work that way.
It has to be convenient for both schools. If one school travels better than the other, you have to seating, as you guys said, parking, press box, all that figures in. It's like, for example, if Ayersville was hosting a playoff game this week, they have no press box except for like 3 people can fit in. I mean, and you have there's no media coverage basically because the signal out there is horrible. So you got to factor all this stuff in, not just, we got to travel 17 miles farther than what they do. This is bull crap. It's aggravating.
I think like the only one that, I just think of this example a lot when it comes to neutral sites. A few years ago, I think it was I'm looking it up, 2021, when Eden played Lima Central Catholic, and that game was played in Findlay. So that's a haul for Eden. Yeah. Like, driving all the way down to Findlay, and then you look at Lima Central Catholic, and that's about a half hour less drive. That's like scenarios I don't agree with, because then I think you do gain, maybe a little bit of a competitive advantage, because again, we talk about throwing routine off and things like that. And
then again, when you limit it just to Friday night, some of those venues that you could have chosen from are now taken by somebody else. So.
Yeah. you can't use them twice or for whatever reason. Yep. But no, that's very interesting. So, well,
that's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, that concludes our hot takes presented by BSN Sports. Again, we thank them for sponsoring that segment. But again, usually Sunday nights, guys, send in those hot takes. We appreciate them, and we have a good time. I know a lot of you look forward to it as well. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. The Thunderdome is your local indoor softball and baseball facility offering private lessons, turf infield, batting cages, and pitching machine rentals, even offering a golf simulator. Located in Archbold, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-906-3643. Nicely Rentals and Storage is your go-to venue for graduation parties, birthdays, weddings, and more. Also offering vehicle storage, table and chair rentals, and U-Haul equipment. Located in Ayersville, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-439-6177. Trueland Equipment and Salesman Lauren Brown are your go-to for John Deere equipment in Archbold, Ohio. Mowers, compact tractors, skid loaders, and more. Your sales expert on commercial turf and CCE sales. Give Lauren a call today at 419-445-1565.
Back again on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're looking at round 3 of playoffs game predictions. So we'll break it down. We've got 3 teams here left. We're going to look at what our thoughts are and who we're picking. So the first one, we're looking at Division 5, Region 18. The 4 seed Oak Harbor, 12-0, plays the number 1 seed Liberty Center, 12-0, and that game is going to be at Clay. This is our NWO Sports Game of the Week. We will be traveling to Clay for this one. So again, if you see us, feel free to stop by or say hi. We appreciate hearing back from you. But Liberty Center is favored in this one, according to Drew Pastor, given an 85% chance to win by 19 points. Breaking down some other things with this, Oak Harbor has played, according to Drew Pastor, the 79th most difficult schedule out of 106 in Division 5. You know what Liberty Center's is? 17 out of 105 or 106 in Division 5. So I think Oak Harbor is going to be in for a rude awakening. I know they're 12-0, but I don't think they've played anyone quite like Liberty Center. You look at their schedule, you break it down. The best win of the year is against an Eastwood team, where they ended up finishing 9-3, a quality opponent. But other than that, most of those teams all have losing records. On the flip side, you look at Liberty Center, they've played tough teams. They've played Archbold, Tenora team that finished 7-4, Bryan team that was quality. They beat a Patrick Henry team. Obviously, they're a little bit smaller Division 7. But Liberty Center's been battle tested in the NWAL. So at the end of the day, I am going with Liberty Center, and I think they take this one fairly easily, actually. So
I took Liberty Center as well, but just looking at some of the numbers, because like Coach Fairchild, who's obviously not going to make it tonight. But interesting, you see points for Oak Harbor, 536, points allowed, 89. So they're allowing less than, I would assume, 7 points a game defensively. But it should be an interesting matchup. But I'm like Logan. I think Liberty Center takes us, probably not a close game.
Hey, I'm going with Liberty Center on this one for sure.
Tony had Liberty Center, Bryce had Liberty Center, and Matthew had Liberty Center. So Liberty Center across the board. We're going ahead. We're looking at the next game, Division 6, Region 22, and we're looking at the 4 seed Cary, 10-2, facing the 1 seed Columbus Grove, 10-2. That game will be played at Fostoria. Columbus Grove is favored in this one, according to Drew Pasture, given a 52% chance to win by 1 point. And we talked about this before. This game is going to be an absolute dogfight. If you like good old-fashioned smash mouth football, a lot of running the ball. Coach Schaefer talked about Cary. They run that old Maryland I formation. They're going to come right at you. Nothing fancy. Columbus Grove, again, he said with their defensive scheme, they run a 4-3, I believe, with a cover 2. Nothing fancy as well. So both teams are going to come right at you. This will be a good one. And I wish we could go to 2 games at one time, because this is another excellent game. Both teams played tough schedules throughout the year. Look at Cary. They've played the 16th toughest schedule in all of Division 6 out of 106 teams, whereas Columbus Grove has played the number 6 toughest schedule out of 106 teams in Division 6. So 2 teams that have been battle tested. You look at Cary, They've got some nice wins. Winford was a playoff team. They beat Tenor. We were there. They've got a good win, 28-14 win over a good Lima Central Catholic team. They were 8-3. Their only loss on the year to this point, or the 2 losses that they had, were actually to Hopewell Loudon, which we're going to be talking about in a second, and which is a 12-0 team, and a Galleon team that was 8-4. So, but Cary, again, they have a win over a 10-2 Colonel Crawford team. A lot of tough opponents, but don't count out Columbus Grove and the Bulldogs. No. We talked to Coach Schaefer. Don't count them out of the dogfight, because they're going to bring everything that they have to you, and you're gonna have to drag them off the field to end up beating them. But Columbus Grove, they beat Bluffton 11-1. They're 11-1 team, which we're hoping we could see a rematch of those two, and I'm pretty excited for that. But we're not looking ahead. But I like Columbus Grove. I am a believer. I picked them in week 10. No one else wanted to except myself and Michael Hearn.
Mr. Hearn,
unofficially. Yep. Or no, was he there for that one? Or I think it was the week after the podcast.
Yeah, he picked Columbus Grove over Bluffton.
Okay, yeah. So him and myself were the only two, but I'm believing Coach Schaefer. I'm believing in the Bulldogs. I'm picking Columbus Grove.
Yeah, taking Columbus Grove as well. These are, man, some of those games, like you said, Logan, wish we could go to split ourselves and go to this one as well, because these 2 schools here are 2 of the better programs in Division 6 in the last decade, really.
Yeah. Cary just won a state championship just a couple years ago. So,
yep. Taking the Bulldogs, this is going to be a great game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here. This week is like where you need like the red zone, NFL red zone package. Well, I just keep flipping back and forth between the games. I'm going with the Bulldogs here.
Tony had Columbus Grove, Bryce had Columbus Grove, and Matthew had Columbus Grove. So Columbus Grove across the board. And I don't see anyone here on this cast that's counting Columbus Grove out of the fight. So we're all pulling for Columbus Grove there. Next game, we are looking at Division 7, Region 26, the 1 seed Hopewell Loudon 12-0 versus the 5 seed Patrick Henry 10-2. That game will be played at Bowling Green High School. Looking at Drew Pasture, Hopewell Loudon is favored to win it by 60, or with a 69% chance to win, and by 9 points. Ooh, this is tough. We're looking, Hopewell Loudon. We just talked. They beat Cary to start the season. Cary's a powerhouse in small school, high school football, and Hopewell Loudon's got to win against them. Just breaking down some other wins that Hopewell Loudon has. Obviously, Cary's the big one. Tiffin Calvert, they were an 8-2 seed as well. They beat Pandora Gilboa 8-4, which Pandora Gilboa beat Columbus Grove at the beginning of the season. So, very quality team, playing some bigger schools and higher schools up in the divisions. I think it's tough. Their strength of schedule is 33 out of 110 in Division 7. Patrick Henry's is 15 out of 110 in Division 7, but at the end of the day, I think Hopewell Loudon is just going to be a little too much. I've heard, maybe Patrick Henry might be dealing with some injuries, things like that. And their kids are playing well, but I just think Hopewell Loudon, the Chieftains, are going to be too much. So I'm going Hopewell Loudon.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Logan. Take a Patrick Henry team, say in week 4, like that team against this team, boy, that would be a great matchup, and I would probably take Patrick Henry. But with Patrick Henry dealing with the injuries, loss of Nash, and a couple offensive defensive linemen here in the last couple of weeks, it's going to be an uphill battle. But if their defense can play like they did last week, at least give them a fighting chance. And Lincoln Krager's playing better every week, a little diversified there. But this is going to take a perfect game to beat Hopewell Loudon. So taking Hopewell Loudon.
I'm going to stick here with Patrick Henry, just really pulling for them to pull on a win against Hopewell Loudon. I know one of our hot takes was that whoever comes out of this region, well, the hot take was that Patrick Henry is going to squeak out of the region. Yeah. But I think it's going to be, whoever wins this game here, it's going to be a fight to the end, and it's going to be a fight to the end next week. So I'm hoping that Patrick Henry has enough fire underneath him to keep him going.
And Tony had Patrick Henry, Bryce had Patrick Henry, and Matthew had Hopewell Loudon. So we're split right down the middle on this one. So should be a good game. All of these should be a good game. Anytime you get into round 3, you get in the regional semifinal, the regional final games, you're getting the best of the best in those regions. Yep. And the numbers keep getting smaller and smaller because at the end of the day, there's only 4 teams that can make the semifinals, and there's only 1 team that can win it all. So you're really starting to see some of the better football teams around still in the playoffs. So, well, that concludes our game predictions for round 3 of the playoffs. Closing thoughts, guys.
Not a whole lot left to say this time of the year. I mean, weather's still looking good for this weekend. So if you're one of the teams left, or even another team in the area that wants to continue watching some football, get out there.
Yeah, it's just your practice schedule is a little bizarre now because now you're practicing under the lights, basically.
It is.
Yeah. So, but for me personally, just like to thank Archbold for number 1, week 3, what they did for Tenora. I mean, that we can't say thanks to that community enough. And this Friday night, we were over there. We're on the sidelines with Coach Dominic and his crew. Thank you guys for allowing us to do that. And Saturday night, Caleb and Liberty Center, open arms over there for me and Logan when we were over there. First class, both those communities. And like to just thank them for allowing us to be close and right there, like you could just feel it.
Yeah, that's like us. Like, I'd much rather be on the sidelines than standing or sitting up in a press
different
box.
Perspective.
It is, because you just feel the emotion. You feel like you're part of the team. And a lot of the area schools and athletic directors, they do an excellent job, as well as the coaching staff. So we appreciate obviously letting them follow us. And
sometimes you hear some funny things that you probably shouldn't, but
there's some
we'll go there.
Yeah, there's some things that we probably shouldn't say, but what stays on the football field, that kind of stays there. So, no, I agree, and I'm just excited. Another week of great football games coming up. Like I said, we're going to Clay High School to watch Liberty play, which is the first time all year, so we're excited about that as well. I got some good cold gear from both BSN Sports and 3 Court, so we're excited about those. And we thank them for their sponsorships because we got some pretty cool swag and
pretty awesome.
Represent NWO Sports. So other than that, hopefully the wind's not too cold coming off Lake Erie there, because last time we were up the Perrysburg way, Toledo way, it was Elmwood and Liberty Center, and that game, that wind just bit right through you. So key point is to always be over-prepared rather than under-prepared. And that's anything in life, because we can tell you that more times than not. So other than that, I've got nothing else. So we'd like to thank all of our sponsors: 3 Court, Optimal Performance Fitness, BSN Sports and Jim Garris, Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tenora Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, The Drop Zone Pizzeria, Crystal Vasquez of Amerimade Realty, Nicely Storage and Rentals, the Thunderdome, and Truland Equipment in Lauren Brown. We'd also like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his facility here at Bat Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.